Welcome in, everybody. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Jerry Hamilton. This is Coffee and Football, Tuesday morning, one day before.
Hey, Jenny Burton, thank you for the high shirt.
Oh, boy. I've got one myself, and Blake's got one. We'll have to coordinate all of that together, Jerry, at some point. Blake Monroe's going to miss this morning with us. He's got to take his kiddo to the doctor. But Jerry and I are here. This episode of Coffee and Football brought to you by our friends over at Austin Underground. We're going to talk a little Longhorn football this morning. Obviously, Jerry, not just Pete Kwiatkowski, not just Kyle Flood, and not just Jeff Banks, but later today, Sark's switching things up a little bit. He's going to let all of his assistants speak with the media. And I tell you what, we're going to have our hands full because it's not the old days where there are only like 8 assistant coaches. Now there's like 11 or 12.
It's almost like a
What do you think of this switch up by Sark? You think it's a sign of confidence, maybe?
Yes.
That's what I think.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I think it's almost like a college football playoff, like media day, right? When all the assistant coaches come out. I think it's a sign of confidence. Yes. And I love the idea of it. And this is what I think it should be every year because, PK is going to get questions about defensive line, interior defensive line. Well, he only has a limited amount of time he can speak, but why shouldn't the media? I think it's great that the media can go ask Kenny Baker about Murad Watson specifically, about Travis Shaw. Where are those guys at in his eyes, the guy that's coaching him every day? I think that's great. Same thing. Alan Clark will be in front of the media probably for the first time here. What are his thoughts on Colin Simmons? Oh, by the way, you were at Ohio State last year. What are you thinking? What do they return at defensive line? What are their young guys going to look like? I think it's great. AJ Milwee obviously can talk about Arch Manning more and some of the younger quarterbacks, whether that leads to Trey Owens or KJ Lacey. Chad Scott in front of the media for the first time to talk about his running back room, where he's at with the familiarity of those guys. So I think it's awesome. I love it. I love that Sark's doing this for the first time preseason, and I hope it's like that every year.
I really do too, Jerry. And I think that it is a show of confidence because me and Jeff Howe were talking about this last night. When Sark first got here, we literally only got PK, Jeff Banks, and Kyle Flood once the entire first year. He typically is not allowed his assistants to speak with the media other than once per year. And then they started going all these bowl games where you have to make those guys available. And 5 years into it, hey, you go to back-to-back playoffs. All of a sudden the doors open a little wider. They swing a little wider. We'll see, though, how often that stays because obviously there's a proclivity, I think, for coaches to kind of close those walls in a little bit to keep everything in-house. But it's something interesting. Jeff Howe, CJ Vogel, John Burrow is going to be on site for us today. Jerry and I are heading to Austin a little bit later today as well. So we'll be talking more about Texas football. It is 32 days away from the game against Ohio State a little bit later this morning. Former number 32, Marcus Myers, will be joining us as well for Coffee and Football. Look forward to that. That'll happen about 8:35 this morning. We'll get to your questions, comments, etc. But before we start the show, really, I want to make sure we say thank you to our sponsor. Our Tuesday morning Coffee and Football always brought to you by our friends over at Austin Underground, Rick Vavro and his team. Since 2004, Austin Underground has specialized in difficult underground commercial installations. The team's engineering background gives Austin Underground the ability to perform work other firms often consider too risky. Rick and his team offer an end-to-end client experience, including seamless communication, budgeting, staffing, and top-notch trade partners. And most importantly, they produce solid quality work each and every time. That's Austin Underground. They also have a sister company, Texas Road. If you have any big road projects you need done in or around the Austin area, make sure you check out texasroad.com. Jerry, your thoughts as we enter this one-day period before we get going this year. What are some of the big questions you have going into fall camp today. And then I also want to say something else a little bit later about something I wrote this morning. What are your big thoughts going into camp beginning tomorrow?
Yeah, I think it's like Texas is so talented right now. My big questions are Nate Kibble in third guard. Is he going to win both of those jobs? It's things such as that for me. How's the secondary really going to shake out? Is Jalen Kilbo actually going to stick at corner, or is he going to move more back into nickel? Because last year, we don't expect Jalen Gilbo to be Jahdae Barron as a player, right? So that leaves more of a little bit of okay, what's actually going to happen here? How's that going to work out? What's the second team corners going to look like? Is Jonah Williams not having spring ball going to be able to make an instant impact for me outside of special teams, which I don't have any doubt about that, in a crowded safety room? Where is Derek Williams at? Which we'll get some news on that today. Where's CJ Baxter at in his recovery? We'll get some news on that today. Will anybody else be limited early in practice? I'm sure we'll get some news on that today. But it's really, I think Texas has really good depth in their offensive line, depth of talent. They don't have depth of experience. So what is that going to look like going into fall camp? And obviously Kyle Flood will speak to that today. Those are kind of the big things for me, because there's somebody in the chat said they're worried about tackle depth if a Gooseby or a Baker goes down. Yeah, there's not any game experience behind them. There's talented players behind them. Like Andre Kojo, it's not like if Baker's your starting right tackle and Baker goes down, it's not like Kojo is new to the program and new to the system and new to the scheme, but he would be new to in-game experience that matters for sure. So how are some of those? Where's Kyle Flood's head at on his offensive line? Not just the starters going into fall camp, but the depth of those guys headed in the fall camp is one of the big things for me. And then, generally the health of the team. Is anybody going to be out maybe unexpectedly to start fall camp here? But I'm really excited. I've gotten my mind more into it the last week and a half after the recruiting push, and my mind's been in it, but I've been diving more into depth charts of teams and really taking a look at some of the stuff. And I just think Texas talent level is as high as it's been since the years.
Yeah. I agree with that, Jerry. I think that's what, as we see Bob Shipley here, he's familiar with those days, Coach Bob Shipley. I wrote this morning a couple of different pieces. Like, I don't know if they're predictions so much as some things that I'm thinking that maybe the common fan out there is not thinking this morning. For example, I wrote, don't discount Christian Clark. I know people are like, who's going to be the next guy? We got Cedric Baxter coming back, Trey Weiser. There's something about Christian Clark that tells me, hey, don't discount him, right? There's something about Emery Winston that I would say something similar about. He's a very rare combination of toughness, quickness, and athleticism, and he catches the ball cleanly on the move. Like, he's a good moving target. Grayson Littleton's another one we've mentioned, Jerry, that we keep hearing is gonna probably find some time. And then you mentioned Nate Kibble as well. I mean, just how, it's very interesting. There are different body types. And this leads me to my next conversation. Nate Kibble does. We were asked yesterday on this show, who's the first off the bus?
Mm-hmm.
And you said Justice Terry, and I was like, I started thinking about it. Texas has several guys that are first off the bus at their position. Like, you're not going to get better looking wide receiver than Ryan Wingo and Emmett Mosley.
No.
It just ain't happening. You're not going to get a better looking quarterback physically than Arch Manning. Just tree trunk leg. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that goes on top of the Lance Jacksons, the Justice Terrys, the Anthony Hills at linebacker, right? Jelani McDonald. I mean, come on. That's not – if you draw up a prototypical robotic safety and wanted that, they would probably look something like long-armed Jelani McDonald, right? One of the guys, though, that I put in there, and you wouldn't normally think it, is Nate Kibble. And one of the reasons I put him as first off the bus is because he may be the widest human being on the Texas roster. Like he's going to have to go sideways through the bus door. Von Lane ain't getting him through
in other words, Cole Brevard. David Rawls mentioned Cole Brevard. If you haven't, wait, Texas fans, wait until you see Cole Brevard in person.
Yeah,
I mean, he is
Travis Shaw.
Square.
Yeah, Travis Shaw. So, anyways, long story short, those are some of the things that I was talking about this morning in the article. If you get a chance, you can go check that out. If you just joined us here, I know we've had some people join us in the last 10 minutes here since we started. Blake Monroe is out this morning. Best wishes to him and his family. He does have to return to the hospital this morning with his family. Something came up. So please keep him in your thoughts this morning as well. I don't want to go too far into it, but we literally got a call. Blake got a call about 10 minutes before we were set to go on this morning. So we had a whole show planned out, but he is headed back to the hospital this morning. So
I want to say, man, it's crazy. The clock just hit 8:32, or my phone did. Yeah. We're 32 days away. And I wanted to take a few minutes, because we're going to have Marcus Myers on here in a few minutes, and we'll get him to comment on this too. But Cedric Benson, kind of a day that I think about Cedric Benson. Midland Lee, which is now Midland Legacy High, Cedric Benson. Texas, Cedric Benson. The Cedric Benson obviously passed away tragically, but one of the great players in Texas high school football history and Texas Longhorns history, and went on to have 6,000 plus yards in the NFL. Bobby, but if you were really, we talk about this all the time, like, what do you want in a football player? What you really look for in a football player? Cedric Benson had all the qualities you ever look for in a football player, because it starts with toughness. It starts with athletic balance. It starts with that intestinal fortitude, right? To carry the football 40 times in a game if need be. A guy that was just as aggressive in pass pro or after catching the ball out of the backfield as he was on a 3rd and 1 run. Every time he had the football in his hands, it was toughness. It was football character. And, today Bobby, I just wanted to get everybody's thoughts. I mean, on Cedric Benson, one of the greats that wore the uniform at Texas.
Yeah, we'll ask Marcus about that too, because he played with Cedric at Texas as well. So should be fun discussion there. A couple other things we were going to talk about. One was edge recruiting, Jerry. Yeah. And as we looked at it, and something that you and I talked about, because Jake Krell is coming up, we think, on a decision here relatively soon. The young man out of IMG Academy that's originally from Orlando. But if you look at this commitment list right now, Jerry, really there's just, at this point, there's just Richard Wesley committed as one of those players. So what does edge recruiting look like overall? Is Texas just going to try to take 2? What happens if they miss on Krell? I mean, what are your thoughts on edge recruiting right now for the Longhorns?
Yeah, look, so Richard Wesley, you guys know I went to see him in July in California. I was down there for obviously something else, but made a day to go out to Rancho Santa Margarita. Really struggled through the fight there, and into Mission Viejo High School, where Wesley was working out with some NFL guys. His trainer, Trey Lewis, does a great job. I think Richard Wesley's going to have a monster senior season, by the way, monster senior season. I think he'll end up as probably a 5-star, industry-ranked 5-star across the board. On edge recruiting, Jake Krell, and it's pronounced Krell. I spoke with a couple of sources close to that recruitment yesterday, and IMG, Bobby and I mentioned IMG has a media day coming up August 2nd. Krell has not informed IMG if he's going to announce a decision that date. Now, there is another player on the team announcing that date. There's also been October talked about. One of the sources I spoke with would be surprised if his recruitment went out that long, but we'll see what happens. Both sources thought, Texas has really made the push. Come on, whatever you want to say here late, and that there's more Texas chatter than there is Oklahoma and Ole Miss chatter. Does that mean it's a done deal? We don't go to those links in recruiting. But one of the people I talked to thought, yes, Texas football, the brand of Texas. Now, Jake Krell's a very active, popular guy on a couple of social media platforms, the brand of Texas and the academics. I think he has multiple family members that attended the University of Florida. So the football academics matter, I think, to the family and recruiting as well. But I think Texas is in a pretty good spot. Let's see when he says he's going to announce. Then on from that with Edge, if Texas got Corral, if they did, we're playing the if game. I think Texas will still recruit Trenton Henderson, the LSU commit from Pensacola Catholic, because I think they're different players. Corral is really a pass rush specialist coming out of high school that it will build his body up over time, similar to Trey Moore, I think, get up to that 245, 250 range. Right now he's about 6'2", and a shade, and 225, 223. So he's got some frame building to do as far as being a three-down player in the SEC. But then outside of that, Trenton Henderson is I think he's a five-star prospect. I think he's tremendous prospect. Seeing him in Pensacola at their jamboree in the spring, I just think he's going to end up. I think he should be one of the top 20 prospects in the country based on what I've seen from guys out and about in the last year. But I don't think Texas will back off of him. So I think they have a tremendous prospect committed in Richard Wesley. And then I think Jake Krell, Texas is maybe trending there. We'll see where it finishes up and when he announces how long will this recruiting process play out. And then I fully expect Texas to stay in contact with Trenton Henderson.
All right, we're going to get to Marcus Myers, make sure he's got his video up and running here in a minute. He's online. I
love this.
I gotta be honest. I did not expect this, but Marcus is following in the footsteps of Rod Babers.
Love it.
Marcus, how you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm good. I gotta pull this thing off. I saw one yesterday, and he was saying he couldn't get his to fit, so I figured I'd try, see if I can make mine work, man. But I'm doing good. How are y'all?
Good, Marcus. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday morning. One day away from fall camp. What are your memories as a former player? It's reporting day as well, by the way, so they'll have team meetings. So what are your memories of this day back when you were playing?
Yeah, man, it's definitely different today, right? Because back when we reported, freshmen reported first. So I remember coming in my freshman year, and it was like just a bunch of us kind of running around, not really knowing what we're doing. Then the veterans came in, and I know all the old guys talk about it, but we had real two-a-days then. So it's definitely different, but it's exciting time of the year. You really look forward to putting together all the work that you did with your brothers in the off season over the summer. And it's been cool to see, the different shows that are bringing back a lot of the guys and talking about, our time with Mad Dog and the Sand Pits. And I know I always pop in, I talk about 110s because those things were brutal, and we would do them in the middle of the Texas heat. But the whole point was that by the fourth quarter, we were getting better and we were getting stronger. So this is kind of that next phase of their evolution for that. And they'll hit this kind of rut probably within a couple of weeks where they start getting a little frustrated because they're having to hit each other and they can't touch Arch and they can't touch the quarterbacks and got to keep off of certain guys. But it's my favorite time of the year, man. It's real cool. I always see, Chris Bennett put up, it's 32 days right around, this time. And so that's what lets me know, we got some football in there. So I'm really excited.
I want to ask you, Marcus, somebody said, kind of asked in a question in a different way, like, when did the light come on for you as a college player? Like for the freshman guys coming in, talk to kind of, because there are some guys, I mean, most guys are early enrollees, right? These days, 80% of them. There's a few guys that are just now getting to Texas, but talk about those first few freshman practices from what you remember, and actually how difficult that process is from going to high school football star to, we're going to de-recruit you now and you're not that good, right? There's a de-recruitment process for everybody, and that process and what it's really like.
Yeah, absolutely. You make a really good point, Jerry. I know for some of us, this will be familiar. For some of the younger viewers, they may not follow as much, but remember the movie The Program? And so Omar Epps shows up, he's getting recruited, the bus pulls out, it has cheerleaders and the whole nine, and then he comes back, and nobody's there, and he's like, where was all the stuff when I was getting recruited? And that's really what it's like, right? Once you get there, there's a process where they have to remind you that, like, hey, you're just one of many now, right? You were the man at your high school. Everybody here is the man. And so I think those early days for us, at least for me, it wasn't as bad as a freshman because I came in with 4 other linebackers. So it was myself, B-Rob, Brian Robinson before he spun down. It was Garnett, Smith, Aaron Harris, and Michael Williams. So at least we had a little bit of a rotation where we could catch our breath. Some of the guys that had a little bit thinner positions, it was a little different. And then by the time, the veterans came in like the next day, a lot of it was kind of really follow in line with their footsteps and figuring out, how they worked, right? And so that's where I think we really kind of earned our stripes, if you will. You kind of figure out how you start to measure up. I can very clearly tell you what my welcome to college football moment was. Back in the day, there was and putting on my helmet reminds me, I think, like, I don't know how much these things really protected us. These are like heavy and huge, but we used to have a drill called Bull in the Ring. And you go in the center of this circle, and it was usually by your position group. And excuse me, at the time, our coach, Bull Reese, would point at a guy, or he would be walking around the circle. As a matter of fact, he would tap him on the shoulder, and that guy comes full bore and hits you, and you got to be able to hold your own. And so I think I had managed to do okay against like a Reed Boyd and a couple other guys. And then all of a sudden, I see these 2 ones running at me. And this guy named Derek Johnson put me flat on my back. So I think that's when I knew, like, all right, this stuff is a little different, and some of these guys are cut from a different cloth.
Bull in the 2 things to say. Bull in the Ring is borderline diabolical these days. It's out of favor because of CTE, I think, essentially, because that was literally like maniacal. Literally, guys could just get blown up in that. But it was an idea about getting you ready, getting you tough, and getting you kind of that armor on, like Rod talks about. And then secondly, I got to add this: any movie that ends up with Halle Berry, Marcus in the program, I think is okay. I think Omar Epps ended up okay in that show.
He did all right.
You talk about all those times you had, Marcus, starting off, and what your expectations were versus what happened, et cetera. Y'all had a pretty good linebacking crew led by Derek Johnson. This Texas linebacker crew is led by a guy in Anthony Hill that a lot of people think is going to be a first-round pick as well. What do you think of I know you watched. I know you're up on the team. We've talked about this offline. Yeah. What are your thoughts about the Texas linebacker group this year?
Man, I really am impressed by the collection of talent they've put together, right? I think I heard y'all talking about this earlier in terms of first off the bus. And I know there's all these different guys. I don't know if Brad Spence's name came up, but I'll probably just keep saying it like over and over, because I know when we were out there in the spring checking out some of the practices, he looks like he's like a 4 or 5 year like NFL veteran, not just college. Like, this dude is really well put together. But I like what they're doing, right? I think they're assembling talent. I always talk to my boys about, we would, when we went through these kind of lighter periods of success, people were having a tough time understanding. And they were always talking about, well, we always have these top classes. And in my opinion, some of those classes were just, some of the rating services, right? Maybe they weren't the perfect fits and not always being developed the best. I think this staff has done a really great job of combining elite talent and stacking that talent so that you don't have to absolutely count on a true freshman to come in and give you serious reps, but maybe that guy can cut his teeth on special teams, or he can be someone that can really learn behind an Anthony Hill. So I really like that they have so many different types of guys and that they're so versatile, right? I think, from like when you talk about football and how the game is actually played, when you have a center trying to identify the mic, right? He's trying to identify what the center of the defense is. Well, how's he going to do that if Anthony Hill, starts out in the middle, but then spins down to the edge, and then, Brad Spence kicks over, and now he's playing, the middle backer spot, or any, number of the calibrations, whether that's LaFau or, any of the guys that could, have a hand in the dirt and then back up. So I think it's really impressive what they put together. I think they have a very unique staff that's very well equipped to get the best out of these guys. And so I'm really excited, man. I'm fired up. I'll be at Ohio State. I'm going out to some of the practices. I could talk about this all day. It's funny. I was at church on Sunday, and I see Stevie Lee, and I go to the same church. So does DJ and some other guys in the area. And so he comes, and I'm stepping across my girlfriend to give him a big hug. And you also notice, like with our guys, and I bet it's the current ones too, like we don't really do handshakes. Like we're always hugging it out. And he sits down, he does a little small talk, and then we jump straight into football right before church starts. So we're fired up and we're ready to go. Yeah, but I'm excited about this linebacker core. I think they're going to be really special this year.
Football talk is allowed in churches in Texas, by the way. That's okay. What do you got here?
Marcus, you just came up with a new show idea, Bull in the Ring.
There you go.
Look, Bobby and I are supposed to be meeting up on Thursday. So, from your lips to God's ears, I hear it.
Bull in the Ring. What do y'all think, chat? Weekly show. Hey, I always ask about guys because I do want to ask you about Cedric Benson. I want your thought, your memories and thoughts on Cedric being 32 days away here. But I want to first ask you, I always ask guys when they bring up a name, some of the guys that were really talented that maybe didn't make it for whatever reason. You brought up Michael Williams from Lindale. He was in your recruiting class in that number 1 ranked class. I remember that guy being insanely height, weight, speed, talented. Okay, what were your thoughts? I mean, obviously it didn't pan out at Texas. What were your thoughts on him when you kind of first saw him? Because he just looked different on tape in high school to me.
Yeah, my true freshman year, I was redshirting, right? But my very first year on campus in the dorm in Jester, he was actually my suite mate, right? So we shared a bathroom. And I mean, his nickname was Freaky because he was just that twitchy. Like that's what we called him. And I mean, he would be perfect for the modern game, right? And back in the day, I think I was trying to find it one day and I couldn't, and maybe I can track it down somewhere, but there used to be this tape.
Oh, yeah.
VHS tape that came out called Recruits in Review.
Oh, yeah.
I remember seeing him on it, and I'm like, okay, I met most of the guys. My college roommate, once we got to choose, and who I really spent the most of my college career with was Matt Melton. And he was from Tyler, which is real close to Lindale. So he knew Mike. He had told me a little bit about him, but I'm thinking like, this guy is like 6'2", 6'3", like 230 something. All right. Like, you turn on the tape and the first play was like a screen pass to him. And he's like taking it for 80 yards. And I'm trying to figure out where's the linebacker. And then the next play he's screaming off the edge and, kind of does like one of those B-Rob Bomar type tackles. So Mike was an animal, man. He just, it all came naturally to him. And like you said, for different guys, doesn't work out for different reasons, but he was an incredible athlete. I had a bunch of those guys in my class. Your Robert Timmons, Marquise Johnson never even made it to campus. So, you always have those stories in different classes of guys that didn't make it, but had all the talent in the world. And maybe not everybody is as familiar with them.
Tell us a little bit about your dealings with Ced Benson and what
man. That it's tough, man. Like I think we all, have such fond memories of Ced. Obviously he was an amazing football player. He was also one of my welcome to Texas moments, right? He kind of adopted a bit of that Ricky where, sometimes he was, going all the way to the end zone. And if you were in his way, even if the play was letting up, like he was going to drop a shoulder on you. So you learn pretty quick to protect yourself with Ced. But man, I miss that guy. He was he should be the one on here, doing the 32 days of Texas football, because in my opinion, he's the best 32, that Texas ever had. And he was a supreme hard worker. It was really cool, the kinship that he and DJ had. So much so that on my recruiting visit, Derek Johnson was my host. But a lot of times they would kind of pair you up with people. And so DJ was my host. Ced B, for whatever reason, was Larry Dibble's host. I think they just kind of clicked. And if you remember, Ced B had played some, pro baseball. So he had this candy green Escalade. And after we did all our stuff we had to do with the coaches, this Escalade pulls up and picks up me and Dibbles, and Ced's driving, DJ's in the front seat, and they, kind of showed us around. And he was just always a good dude, man. Like beyond anything he did on the field, he was just a solid individual. And I think a lot of people, mistake that sometimes. And And then the funny part about it is that's part of why I started, with my helmet on is I heard Coach Brown talking on, his new show the other day about how, football players back in our time, at least, a lot of times you didn't know what they looked like because obviously we wear helmets, baseball players don't, basketball players don't. And so at our, signing days to kind of break camp every year, we would, have all these long tables set up and you have your jersey on, right? And after my freshman year, I would always have this long line and I'm like, I'm not good enough for this. Like, what are these people thinking? And people would come up and they would start saying, hey, Cedric. And I'm like, nah, man, like this is nuts. Like, he has braids at the time. I just had a nice little fade. And so eventually I made a little sign and I just wrote it on there. I am not Cedric Benson, right? Just wanted to make it a little easier for people if they wanted to make sure they got in the right line, that they didn't waste your time. But man, I have such fond memories of Ced. He was just always a good dude. And I even remember my again, when I first got to campus, one day I think I was, lagging a little behind in the weight room or something, finishing up a little extra stuff. And he just walks by and he was like, hey, freshman, you want to go eat? And I'm like, sure. And so I go, jump in the car with him. And next thing I know, we're going to like Texas Land and Cattle with Chris Sims, Kyle Shanahan, and Bo Scaife. So that was just the kind of guy he was. And I miss him. And I wish he was around to kind of see, how much people appreciate it.
So everybody gets one. You've been out to practice. You followed as close as any of us do. Kind of your thoughts on Arch Manning. What's in front of Arch? This is as much hype around the player as we've seen in college football since Tim Tebow. That's just realistic. I don't know what to say. Joel Klatt just had him number 4 in his preseason rankings, and he was talking about on videos today. Okay, what you've seen from Arch, your thoughts on Arch, and kind of what's in front of him at the University of Texas.
I think most people are, kind of echoed a lot of these sentiments, right? The quarterback at Texas is always going to get the most criticism. There's going to come a moment, and I love the fact that Sark talks openly about this, right? There's going to come a moment this year where he throws a pick and everybody's booing him. People are going to say that he's overrated. In my opinion, I think he's perfectly suited for this system. He's waited his time. He's chomping at the bit. He has the perfect demeanor for it. You hear him at SEC media days, and they're asking him all these questions. He's like, man, I haven't earned this stuff. Like, I know why y'all are heaping this on me. And I think there's a quiet confidence there with him. I think it'll be interesting to see like how it shifts over time, right? At some point, then, they'll probably try to pick him apart and say he has this great defense behind him. And so it's not really him that is having to drive the ship. But I think he's perfectly situated to excel. And I think one of the best things about it is he has a lot of talent around him on both sides of the ball. So he's not expected to carry the team, right? And I think he's going to be able to do that in a way that's very unique. And I think it's going to be special. I'm going to hold off on making a prediction or anything just yet because I kind of want to see him once they get some pads on. But I think he's really well equipped for it. I'll tell you this too real quick. You can see also where he gets it from. And people always talk about the Manning family, but you don't really have an appreciation for it until you meet one of them. So, when we were out there at the spring, football practices for our Letterman reunion, it was the last practice of the spring. It was closed, to the public. So it had a bunch of us in there, but some of the parents were milling around, a bunch of the Lettermen. And I'm standing up there at the top of the hill, in that little breezeway by the bathroom. And I hear somebody kind of say to me, hey, man, can you tell me who like number 1 is or number 7? I don't remember what it wasn't Wingo, but it was somebody else. He was like, I try to keep up with these guys, but they're all, a lot of them are new and they're transferring in. And sometimes it's tough. And, I think I remember, rattling off whoever it was. I turned to my side and it's Cooper Manning, right? For the next 20, 25 minutes, like we just sat there and talked. He and one of my buddies, Matt Jones, was there with me. And he talked to us both like just regular human beings. And I just flat out asked him, so, how often do you come out seeing Arch? He was like, honestly, this is the very first time I have. He was like, I felt it important and we felt it important to not contribute to the circus, let him be, a regular, student athlete, not, draw too much attention. And I think, that in itself told me volumes about who Arch is, how he's been raised, by his father, his mother, his uncles, and of course his grandfather. So I think, it's his time and only time will tell how good he will be. I think he's, certainly going to be judged a bit unfairly regardless, but I think he's gonna rise to the occasion and put together a pretty special career.
Marcus, thank you so much for your time this morning, bud. We could spend another hour here with you, but I know you got other things going on. I'll see you. How about we meet at Kirby Lane after the show on Thursday? That works,
man. I'll pull up.
All right. Thank you so much. That's Marcus Myers, former Texas Longhorn. 32 days from the start of college football season for the Texas Longhorns. Marcus, thank you so much. Jerry's got his high shirt on that my wife's in. Marcus, just a good guy, lives in the Austin area. We'll get to know him a little bit more. Hopefully we have him back on for sure a little bit later in the year. Jerry, you would please do us the honors of talking about one of our key sponsors for the 2025 football season. Please help me out here.
Marcus, we need to get Marcus Myers on a Vaughn Lane and just film him telling stories because he's an amazing storyteller with a great memory. But hey, look, you've got to get from one city to the other, right? To another. And like always, it's a toss-up deal. Deal with airport chaos. Hope your flight isn't delayed. Do you brace yourself for hours behind the wheel, battling traffic and burning a full day? Done that many times. Now there's a third option, and it's better in every single way. You arrive at a luxury hotel terminal. No TSA lines, no long-term parking lots, just seamless boarding experience that takes minutes, not hours. You settle into one of just 22 oversized first-class seats with 140-degree recline, leg rest, and cabin attendant serving complimentary snacks, beverages, and on select trips, even full meals. Need to relax, lean back, and enjoy the ride. Want to stay productive? There's high-speed Wi-Fi and power at every single seat. Fall travel is booking fast. Reserve now for October trips to Texas, Oklahoma, and Dallas, F1 and ACL in Austin, or college football weekends in Nashville, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston. Vaughn Lane connects Austin, Dallas, Houston, Fort Worth, San Antonio, Nashville, Atlanta, Memphis, and now Knoxville, Tennessee, the Woodlands, Texas, and even Plano, Texas. Visit vaughnlane.com and use code OTF25 to save $20 on your first ride. Vaughn Lane, elevated regional bus transportation.
Well, we're gonna be taking one this week or this month, coming month, Jerry, around to different cities in the state of Texas. We'll be talking about a little bit of that later this month as well. So thanks to our sponsor there, Vaughn Lane, as well. Jerry, I tell you what, because Blake had all of our stuff ready to go. He had all our graphics and everything ready to go. And if you're just joining, Blake had something that he needs to tend to privately, a health matter with his young son. We're gonna just go to the questions and take people's questions this morning, if you don't mind. That might be the easiest way for us to do this. Let's start with this. And had a couple of guys pass away here in the last couple of weeks that have kind of been crazy. You mentioned Hulk Hogan. Ryan Sandberg, the second baseman for the Chicago Cubs, Hall of Famer, passed away yesterday at the age of 65. That's a little too close for comfort for me, but it's something to think about there. This is a question, though, Jerry. Drew Lockhart, are there any comparisons or similarities with Caleb Downs and Devon Benjamin? Benjamin, obviously, the defensive back out of Southern California that's deciding between Oregon, Texas, and Michigan. He's expected to announce on August 2nd. Downs, the starting safety for Ohio State that the Longhorns will see in Columbus in 32 days.
I think they're different players. Well, first of all, Caleb Downs' dad is a college coach. I mean, he literally grew up in this, like from birth, essentially. I think Devon Benjamin maybe, and I'm going to say better, and boy, that sounds crazy because Caleb Downs is like a top 5-7 potential pick in the draft. Maybe naturally a better space player in coverage. I think Downs is unbelievable playing the run, playing downhill. I think Devon Benjamin, if there's one area that Downs is probably going to have to prove out in the NFL, and that's more man coverage situation. I think Devon Benjamin's a really good natural man guy. If he plays safety, he could play nickel. He can play. He's more. Devon's got some similarities to Jahdae Barron as a player for me. And I think obviously more highly ranked coming out of high school. And by the way, for those wondering, we do still believe Oregon leads Michigan and Texas headed into an August 2nd announcement. Talked to 2 people about that yesterday. But I can't really compare those 2 guys. I think Caleb Downs is an unbelievable football player, especially downhill playing the run and anything where ball's in front of him and he sees it. I think Devon Benjamin may be more of a natural man cover guy at the defensive back position, but they're both elite talents.
Yeah, I think they're elite talents. I think, is there more playmaking in Benjamin potentially? I mean, I think Downs may be a better player because of the things that you articulated. Coach's son gets it, sees it before it happens. It doesn't mean he's necessarily a better athlete than Devon Benjamin.
Yeah.
I mean, Devon Benjamin is really, really talented.
Yes.
Really talented. One view of his film, and it's not even there. All right. Dax Kelm with the question everybody wants to know in 32 days. Who are we talking on the goal line versus Ohio State? 4th and inches. CJ Baxter or CJ Vogel? Somebody else asked, is Texas going to implement the tush push that Jalen Hurts has made so popular up in Philadelphia? What do you think Texas does short yardage? I mean, not necessarily, I guess, out of the gates and long term. Is it a tush push with Cedric Baxter back there pushing on him? Because the other thing that the Eagles have is they have these big guys behind Jalen Hurts pushing on him. It's not just Jalen Hurts solo.
Yeah.
Trey Lance is not that guy.
No. Well, I mean, like, if we're going to do the tush push, let's get creative. Snap at the Nick Brooks and have somebody push him.
Oh, come on.
I mean, if we're going to do it, let's get creative.
You got to have people that have taken a snap.
How about Nick Townsend then? A 6'4", 240-pound jumbo athlete. How about Jonah Williams?
They got to take snaps.
Who ran out of Wildcat in high school, Bobby? I mean, like,
that's not Wildcat's. Wildcat's a different.
No, but I'm saying tush push is get one of those jumbo athletes who played out of a Wildcat in high school that can get under center and take a snap, and then you have Nick Brooks line up behind him and push. If you're going to do it, just do it. Yeah.
Goal line versus Ohio State. I think that quarterback sneak is definitely in play. I think if Cedric Baxter is available, we can talk about that. I will say CJ Vogel won't be it. Jerry, I mentioned this, and it's time. We're going to get a look at him tomorrow. So a lot of this may or may not come to fruition. But I wrote this morning at On Texas Football that there's something about Christian Clark that I think people discount, and I think they do it at their own peril. There's something about him that I think he's a mix of good size, like strength size, not necessarily tall. He may be the shortest running back on the roster. It's not the height, but he's got good bulk to him for his size, and he makes some violent cuts and he runs tough. I think people discounting him or maybe making a slight misstatement.
Yeah, well, my big thing with him is once you come off a serious injury like that, when the first reps you take are absolutely fearless, I think that says a lot about you as a football player.
Oh, it's like it reminds you almost of a Priest Holmes, how he did that.
Yeah, look,
comparing him to Priest Holmes. I'm not.
No.
But Priest Holmes, wrecked his knee 3 times. And the next time you see him, he's going out there and knocking the you-know-what out of people.
That's actually not a bad comparison for Christian Clark. I've never thought about it. I don't think that's what you meant, but it's not, by the way. But we were both really high on Christian Clark coming out of high school. That was a guy that we both thought was underrated nationally. And it's because he can run it inside. He can run it outside. He's got a jump cut. He's got a skip cut. He sees the backside vision. He's a plant and accelerate through would-be tacklers mentality. He's got a lot to him. But, that first time I saw him and it was, it's just pads and shorts in the spring when we were there for an open media window. But still, the way he took the handoff and attacked the rep, I was like, That guy doesn't look like somebody that had an Achilles tear. Like, so that goes to mentality. That speaks to a player's mentality. And that type of mentality, if he remains healthy, which I'm not saying there's a reason he won't, but if he does, anybody's had a serious injury, if he does, that mentality is a winner at the running back position. We're just talking about a player that had a mentality like that, Cedric Benson.
Yep.
The great running backs have to have that mentality.
All right. You're listening to Thursday Morning's Coffee and Football, brought to you by our friends over at Austin Underground. Jerry, next question. This one coming in from Marcos, we want to address here. If Trevor Gooseby or Brandon Baker get hurt, we're in trouble. I'm concerned about the tackle depth. Is that a legitimate concern in your eyes or not?
I think game experience, yes. Experience with Kyle Flood in the program, maybe not so much. I mean, Andre Kojo is very experienced in the Texas football program. And he came in at 16 years. He had 16 years and 11 months and 362 days or something when he reported to Texas. So he's just now a 19-year-old player, but he's been here a long time. So he knows the system. He's very familiar. He's very comfortable in the program, comfortable with Flood, comfortable with the communication and the calls and everything. So Andre Kojo just doesn't have the Saturday experience, but he's got a lot of Texas experience. Nick Brooks, obviously so talented that he pushed guys out of left tackle, and he's now the number 2 left tackle. And he's so talented that as a newcomer, they said, hey, take a few reps at right tackle. Well, that's very rare for an offensive tackle when they come in from high school football as a midterm graduate. So, but he still hasn't taken a single snap on Saturday with a similar athlete lined up across from him. So there's that. I think talent-wise, they're fine. Game experience-wise, it's a bit of a question.
Let me ask you this. Where's Jaden Chapman in that conversation? Because he saw time. He was thought to be maybe going into spring camp to be the backup at left tackle behind Gooseby. Is he a rotational player between tackle and guard? Is he that type of guy for Kyle Flood, you think?
I think that's what will be interesting is what Kyle Flood says today about his second team offensive line and that rotation. Where does he mention Chapman? Does he mention Chapman in the mix at tackle or guard? Jaden Chapman, since he's been at Texas, has practiced at all 5 positions on the offensive line. And I'm not saying there's one where he's better at than the others. That's Kyle Flood's decisions, but they've seen him as such a versatile prospect that he's taken reps everywhere across the board. And the question now becomes, is he ready to make a push? Because what'll be interesting to me is Nate Kibble the backup left and right guard? Is he come on that much? He had a tremendous redshirt season until he got a little nicked up at the end. Like, it was to the point where if either Cole Hudson or DJ Campbell had gone down for an extended period of time, Texas was going to play Nate Kibble last year. So what does that say for the other guards, the Jaden Chapmans, the Connor Strohs? I think it's about to be determined in fall camp. But is Nate Kibble going to be your third guard and back up at both spots? Well, then that means he really instantly passed up guys that were a year older. And that's where it gets interesting for some of those guys that were a class ahead of him.
Okay. Super chat here from Jerry's Jack Links. Thank you, Jerry. Jerry's Jack Links for this. Cedric Benson used to live 2 minutes up from me on Shepherd Mountain. I saw him walking one of his mini Rottweilers up and down the hill every day. He was the nicest guy. Rest in peace and hook 'em. I mentioned it sounded like from what Marcus Meyer was describing earlier, like Cedric B a lot was given to him and he was inclusive about it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you? Like some guys, they become withdrawn when they get successful or are successful. He seemed to be a little bit more inclusive about it. So that's, remembering a guy that picks up a freshman linebacker and says, hey, let's go to dinner and takes him to see the starting quarterback and, future NFL tight end, et cetera. That's one of those types of guys. So that was good stuff. Jerry, let's switch over to recruiting because there's 2 questions I want to push back to back here. King Me says, any more silent decommits looming? And Jerry, any highs in the group right now?
Yeah,
in class of 2026, by the way.
Yeah, so I want to address one of those things. I want to be clear from our standpoint. We never had Keawe Brown as a high behind the scenes. We're kind of always kind of waiting to see what was going to happen with that. So
there's a reason we didn't mention him as
right.
a possibility for about 3 weeks. Yeah.
Right. And yeah, so look, I'm not prepared to on anything on that realm right now. I think what's going to be so interesting. Actually, our recruiting breakdown today, Jeff and CJ and I recorded it yesterday because the press conference is coming up. We actually probably compared to 25 and 26 recruiting classes. And it got me thinking, look, I think Texas, if it runs out to 27 or 28 in the class, considering there's 3 specialists. So you're really talking about 24, 25 guys that will factor in rankings heavily for whatever algorithm. Now, some only count 18 to 21 at the end of the day. Some just take it as a whole and just recruit them based on what they think about the class. And there's one that counts all of them within our industry. I think Texas has set up the challenge again to have a top 2 class. You know, it's going to be now. This is going to require a couple of pretty big flips. But if you think back to last year, how much can really happen during a season? Cade Phillips went from Texas to LSU, back to Texas. Grayson Littleton's committed to Dabo Swinney, backs out, comes down to Texas, Michigan, goes to Texas. Dalen McCutcheon commits early to FSU, backs out of that, goes to Texas. Those are just some flip guys. Zealous Hicks reclasses from 26 to 25. You're going to see a reclass guy pop up again. Now, some are more of the top tier guys already have, the Richard Wesleys, the Mark Bowmans, Xavier Crowells, but there'll be a couple other guys that are going to reclass. And then you have, is there anybody that's going to, I don't think there's going to be a Justice Terry out there in this class, so to speak. So it's going to come down to, you know, Texas is going to fight, I think, on a Malachi Lee, right? They're going to fight on some of these guys committed elsewhere. A few of those guys. I think Texas will stay in contact with Jalen Law. You're going to see this probably a linebacker committed elsewhere, right? A Trenton Henderson who we mentioned elsewhere or mentioned earlier in the show. But Texas has more of a runway. If you look at class rankings, so Georgia or USC's 1-2 right now. They both have 30 and 31 commitments. And I posted a story on ontexasfootball.com about this a couple of days ago. Who has the most runway? Ohio State has some big decisions coming up, and they have a pretty decent runway. They have 21 commitments, and there's 2 5s and a highly ranked 4 that are announcing soon. And Ohio State won't walk away empty-handed. If they run the table, they're going to be right up there in the number 1 class, ranked heading into the season. A&M has 26 or 27 commitments right now. Notre Dame is 26. They don't have as much of a runway with what's left, so they're probably going to finish 7 or 8 with a great class, by the way. Texas with 21 right now has a little runway in front of them, and I really do think if the number gets to 27 or 28 with the level of prospects Texas recruits late in the game, they're going to be right there at the end. It's going to be interesting.
I look forward to that conversation with you, Jeff, and CJ on recruiting later today. Hey, Austin Underground is our sponsor of Tuesday morning's Coffee and Football. Thank you very much. Since 2004, Austin Underground, Rick Vavro and his team, Tony and the guys, have specialized in difficult underground commercial installations. The team's engineering background gives Austin Underground the ability to perform work other firms often consider too risky. Rick and the guys offer an end-to-end client experience, including seamless communication, budgeting, staffing, and top-notch trade partners. And most importantly, they produce solid quality work each and every time. That is Austin Underground. Make sure you check them out. Rick is an entrepreneur at heart, and he has also started up a bar out in Jonestown near the lake. If you happen to be out there, check out Lone Star Bar as well. Jerry, we got about 10 more minutes remaining in this episode of On Texas Football. I've got a couple more questions here, but be thinking about anything you want to bring up before we let folks go. Before that, Sugarcane Daddy says, Buenos dias, mi amigos. Appreciate that and whatnot. Jerry, another question for you, and this one is good, I think. Could you pick one from Jose Rodriguez? Could you pick one player that will pop this fall camp and earn his keep among the starters, if not now, then by season's end. You keep saying Brad Spence, and Marcus Myers echoed that sentiment in his interview with us earlier today.
I was looking at a bunch of mock drafts, like even 7-round mock drafts for 2026, and these change so much. I think Brad Spence is about to pop, and I think he's already on the radar NFL scouts, obviously, but I think he's going to be a player that has a decision to make by the end of the season if he stays healthy. I think he's going to be that good. I think he's coming into a situation where he has got better talent around him. He had a really good year, too, in college football at Arkansas, 54 tackles, 4.5, 5 sacks. Made some plays against Texas, had a really good game against Texas, and I think that put him on the Texas staff's radar when they're watching film leading up to the Texas game and then how he performed against Texas, Kelvin Banks, and all the Texas talent, because he more than held his own in that game. And so I just fully expect him, and that's those slide on the guys. I think Texas linebacker, of course, tremendous. When Steve Sarkisian calls Anthony Smith a budding star, that alarm bells go off. We've been high on him, but alarm bells go off. Because you're like, wow, there's Anthony Hill, there's Linga LaFau, there's Brad Spence, just Trey Moore working out linebacker. They really like Bo Barnes, the freshman. And then you mentioned Anthony Smith in that light. You're like, oh, wow. So it kind of reinforces our opinion of the Texas linebackers. But I think Brad Spence is going to have a really, really good season. And I think people that rank the portal guys are going to look at that and say, we missed on that one.
Big time, man. I mean, big time. That's what we've talked about. This whole, I just think they got portal rankings so bad.
But if there's another guy out there, Bobby,
I know who I got.
Go ahead, because it might be, I don't want to take the same guy.
I took Colton Vasek. I think he's healthy.
Yeah.
I think he's a potential difference maker, because right now, you can say what you want. Like, Colin Simmons can get after the quarterback. Ethan Burke can get after the quarterback. Zena can get after the quarterback, we think. They've got Anthony Hill. But outside of Lance Jackson and Justice Terry, who are both true freshmen, okay, so you're going to be limited in what expectations might be there. Texas doesn't have another true strong side defensive end on this roster. Ethan Burke is more of a weak side defensive end at heart. And I'm not saying that he can't, masquerade and get it done, because he did so last year at strong side, but he's a more natural weak side defensive end. Colton Vasek is the natural upper class, productive, strong side defensive end.
And he has got a perfect setup on this team. I just hope he has a healthy season, because Ethan Burke and Colin Simmons are going to be your starters. So what does that mean for Colton Vasek? He gets to come in and work over an offensive tackle after he's already taken reps against a really good player. Man, that is a perfect setup for a guy that's hungry in his first healthy season and his first real opportunity. I agree. I think Colton Vasek could have a 40 tackle, 7-8 sack type of season if he stays healthy. If he's healthy. Because imagine coming in, imagine being that offensive tackle that goes up against Ethan Burke, okay, first of all. But then they roll in Colton Vasek, who may be better even pass rusher than Ethan Burke is. And an offensive tackle's already taken 8, 12, 14 reps. By the third quarter, that guy's already played how many plays? And then a fresh Colton Vasek rotates in, breathing fire at you. I mean, he is in a great spot to have a really impactful season on this team.
Let me ask you this. For the number of plays he played against Ohio State, was Colton Vasek maybe the most effective defensive player for Texas in that game? And that's their first opponent out of the gate. And they got a new offensive tackle.
Yeah. And what he looked like, what he looks like to me, now that you've seen him in college, even though it's been a very small sample size, he kind of reminds you of the two ends Ohio State had in that game. He's not going to win the testing battle at the NFL Combine. But you know what he is? He's going to play the run well. He's going to rush the passer effectively enough. And he's just going to have a presence and a disruptive presence on the field. And Ohio State had 2 of those guys last year. And neither one of them were the talent level of a Colin Simmons or an Abdul Carter or a Dylan Stewart, right? But they're really good, second round pick type guys that played complete games at the edge spot. And I think if Colton can stay healthy for the next couple of years, it wouldn't shock me if he kind of was similar to those guys. And that's a big thing to say, but it's kind of like Jordan Whittington. If he's ever healthy, what can he become?
Yep. All right, Antonio Harris with the super chat. Thank you, Antonio. Watching Ohio State spring game, I don't see how they can beat Texas. I may be biased, but they don't look as talented as they're definitely not as talented. Well,
they're not as experienced talented.
Maybe so similar to Texas.
Yeah.
They are talented.
Yes.
And they may be as talented, if not more so, than Texas. I mean, they had highly ranked recruiting classes. Just as highly as Texas, just about. Okay, so and they've done well in the portal. Okay, so they are one of the heavyweights of college football right now. So I can't say that they're not as talented, but they don't have the experience they had a year ago, just like Texas. They are the only team, I believe, that had more draft picks than Texas in the 2025 NFL draft.
It's striking the similarities in some ways to Texas. Like Texas, Ohio State, and Georgia are all extremely similar in this way. They lost 4 or 5 starting offensive linemen off their team last year. And Ohio State's recruited really talented players. Ohio State's a top 5 recruiting class every year for 13 years in a row or whatever it is at this point. So they're talented. They're just not maybe game experience, but that doesn't mean they're not program experience talent. But when you look, this is the thing about Ohio State. They line up like Michigan, but not nearly the same for me because I think they're more talented program and they didn't have all the turmoil. But if you look at Ohio State, and I told you they lost Tyler Williams, Tuamolo, Jack Sawyer, Ty Hamilton, all 4 starting defensive linemen, by the way. Cody Simon, who's a hell of a player at linebacker, Lathan Ransom, Jordan Hancock, Denzel Burke. I mean, they lost 8.5 starters on defense. They lost both running backs to the NFL draft. Ibeka was a really good player. Donovan Jackson was a first-rounder. Guard Texas didn't face Josh Simmons. He had got hurt. He was a first-rounder. They lost about as much as you can lose off a national championship team to me. And Will Howard at quarterback. And they lost both coordinators. They lost as much as you can lose off a national championship team, but they're really, really talented. And it's almost going to be in that game, it's going to be a battle of which offensive line who has program experience, but not as much game experience. Maybe they kind of went portal for a couple of guys too, but which of those offensive lines is going to play better in week 1? Who's going to communicate at a higher level? Who's going to play less error-free football, false starts on 2nd and 3 that change a drive, things such a holding call on 3rd and 2, that then you're behind the chains and you're punting. The small things like that in games, I think is going to be so fascinating. And then what is Matt Patricia going to do? How much is he going to change schematically from where they were? And what is that going to look like for less game experienced players in week 1? It's a fascinating game for those reasons outside of Arch Manning's first real start at Texas, a road start. But it's fascinating to me because of the changes at OC and DC. The NFL starters lost to the draft for Ohio State. They're talented, but how are those guys going to be with so much coordinator change in week 1? I think Ohio State by week 10 is going to be a totally different team than week 1.
I want to say this as it relates to offensive tackle depth, because it goes back to this. Remember how we were just a few minutes ago talking about offensive tackle depth? Do y'all realize that the 2 teams that played for a national championship last year lost their starting left tackles early in the year, both Notre Dame and Ohio State? So depth matters, and depth at tackle matters because they put guys in there that could do it. So just a thought there. Offensive Jackson S. Offensive play 1: run, pass, What about defense? See run pass. Though I'm going to say this with Sark,
Huh.
pass. You say pass first, right?
I do. The question, it's always been a quick hitter. Is it going to be a quick hitter with Arch? I would think it would be in his first throw on the road ever. I don't think you're going to play action, turn your back to the defense, and whip
Let
one
rip.
outside the numbers 38 yards down the field on his first snap. But it's Sark and Arch, so maybe I'm totally wrong. I don't see that.
Some kind of dig, that kind of thing to the outside.
How about the little waggle right?
And he's done that 3 times in his first. I don't think he does it for a fourth. I think Ohio State might be ready for that, just frankly. And they should be, right? They should be. Jeff Carey, if you had to play one additional game against a good team outside of the SEC, who would you pick?
That goes to what do you want, a venue or do you want a team? Do you want a venue or a team? Like for the Tech, like, a game I would love it's never happened. I'd love to play at Miami.
Yeah,
because you have a home
happened before. Texas played Miami.
What year was that?
Back in the 80s.
Yeah,
in the 80s.
Well, you'd have a home field advantage because you'd have more fans. It'd be a great trip for the fan base. It'd be great for recruiting. I mean, I the way Texas is recruiting Florida, like, my opinion changes year to year. I wouldn't mind playing at Miami.
How about you mentioned venue? How about a rematch of Texas Penn State at the Meadowlands in New Jersey?
Yeah.
That'd be a fun intersectional rivalry. Texas has now played Michigan in Ohio State, Notre Dame's on the schedule. What's the next team up that way?
I mean, what TV would love is UCLA at the Rose Bowl.
You mean USC?
I'd say UCLA.
Wow.
I don't know. I don't think Texas USC is going to play like outside, because they're saying if you could add another good. I'm thinking of, okay, you already have a Notre Dame on the schedule or something like that, but go out west, play UCLA.
Timeout. It says good team though, so that disqualifies UCLA right now.
Not a Nico hater right here.
Dante Payne. How is Andre Kojo doing? We just talked about him, the young man, right tackle right now, backing up Brandon Baker. Jerry, you've mentioned at multiple times how young he was coming in. He's now been in the game at this point for in the program for 2+ years. What are your thoughts there?
So he had his best spring. I don't think, like, hands down, he had his best spring, but he should. He's finally 19 years old. I mean, I can't imagine being an offensive lineman coming into college at 16 years, 11 months, and 362 days. I mean, that's kind of crazy to think about, because that's like the man's position, right? That and defensive line in college football is the older man's position. So he's finally 19 years old, and his body's reshaped quite a bit. He's gotten a lot stronger. He's just filled out natural. He's matured and he's grown naturally, mentally and physically. And he's been in the system for 2+ years now. So I think he's ready to go play at Texas. Now, I have no way to know what would happen since he hasn't really appeared in a meaningful game at Texas and taken meaningful snaps. But I do know if he's not prepared now, when is he going to ever be prepared at Texas? Because he's been in Torrey Becton's program for 2 years. He's been with Kyle Flood for 2 years. So techniques develop, physically he's developed. I mean, I'm repeating myself, but if he's not ready now, when's he going to be ready? This is year 3 for him. So I think if he had a good spring enough to push Brandon Baker, right? So when he comes in, and I think games 2, 3, and 4, you're going to see him play. When he comes in, it won't shock me if he doesn't play really well. I'll say that, because he should. This should be his time. NATO the same way. I mean, you've been in the program long enough now to where you should be really comfortable pre-snap. You should be comfortable when the ball snap. And
save your thoughts on NATO.
Yeah.
This question real quick, if you don't mind, Jerry. Text fan, if needed, could we move Nick Brooks to left guard from left tackle to give you the size if you want, if Nadu Umozalu can't make the jump, knowing you have Cole Hudson to help him? This is something that we've discussed I think it all depends, man. I really do. How good is Nick Brooks? Is he so good you can't keep him off the field? We don't know. I mean, that's the question. Obviously, he's going to have a good camp to be there. But if he's that good, I mean, some guys jump the line.
I'll tell you this. What's funny, it was the timing of all of it. CJ and I were at the Grayson scrimmage the day after Tyler Atkinson committed to Texas when we were at SEC Media Days. We're like, okay, we're going to go to their scrimmage, blah, blah, blah. And I asked two coaches, are you surprised? And I said, this is what we're hearing on Nick Brooks. Are you surprised? And both of them said, no, they're not surprised. They saw it coming the last half of his year at Grayson after he started to cut the weight, started to play against Joseph Mbatu and Allen, the edge rusher at Georgia Tech that's a freshman, every day in practice. And then it started to translate the games. They were like, and by the way, they all said this. They all said the kid wanted it bad. So I know he had his incident post-spring, but I think everything leading up to that point was the kid was really working hard. He cut 20 to 30 pounds. He was doing all the right things from a football standpoint. So Grayson was not surprised with what I said we were hearing behind the scenes on Nick Brooks at all. The potential problem with moving him to guard, and I'm not saying it can't happen, is he's your backup left tackle.
Yeah. And
do you really want to take your backup left tackle and move him into guard? It'd be different if he was the fourth tackle, but he is your backup left tackle. And do you want him to keep developing there on a day to practice basis, or take that away and move him inside the guard? I think the preference is to keep him at tackle, but we'll see.
Makes sense. All right. One last thing here. We appreciate you guys very much. Jeff, CJ, and John will be at the coaches' availability today. So outside of the recruiting breakdown today, we're also going to have an almost immediate feedback and video from the press conferences this afternoon. So please be aware of that here on this channel. We also have the live stream later tonight. Rod Baber is going to join Aaron Hogan, as well as either Jeff or CJ, I believe, on that. And then we're back tomorrow morning. Jerry, myself, and Blake Monroe hopefully is back as well with us to host Coffee and Football. In the meantime, please join us over at On Texas Football. We'll have news and notes from the press conferences up there almost immediately as they happen as well. So it is football season, 32 days away. I want to say thank you to Marcus Myers for joining us today. He is a former number 32. I want to say good memory, guys like Cedric Benson, who else? Malcolm Roach.
Yes.
There's just been
Jonathan Gray, one of them.
Yeah, number 32s through the years that are worth remembering, as well as we're 32 days away. Also want to say thank you to Marcus Myers, who joined us, to Sugarcane Daddy, Jerry's Jacklings, Antonio Harris, Jackson S., Jeff Carey, Tex Fan, Dante Payne, for your super chats as well. Also, thanks to Austin Underground, as well as Von Lanes for sponsoring this morning show. Jerry, anything to say before we get going?
Thanks for the shirt, Jenny. I'm a big fan. Jenny Burton with a great shirt idea. I love it.
All right, guys. Yeah, we'll see y'all later today. Big week coming up ahead for the Longhorns. Y'all have a good one. Hook 'em horns.